Hey guys, Preacher 357 here. Out here in the shop, I thought I would just do a little bit of talking today. And when I first started this channel up, my intent was to do a lot of talking. I was planning on having a lot of the 2A sermons, which was something that I came up with that I really wanted to do on this channel, to talk about the Second Amendment, to talk about gun rights. And I found pretty quick that those type of videos didn't get nearly the kind of traction I was looking for, and they did not really make the channel grow. But the gun videos, which I was planning on doing as well, seemed to be the much more popular of the two. So that's what I've really stuck with in an attempt to grow the channel, so that I can actually grow the channel to the point where I have a better platform to talk about some of these other issues. So I really have not done that much in the way of the 2A sermons. In fact, this is just the second one in about 2 years that I've done. So, if this is one of those things you don't care for, those boring talks, then maybe you just skip this one, but hopefully not. Hopefully I can make this at least somewhat interesting. Just got back from the TFA annual meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we had a great turnout. Of course, we had Donald Trump Jr. there as the keynote speaker, and that brought a lot of people out and did a lot of good from the standpoint of getting people in there and getting more money for the TFA, because it is a fundraising event. Because no matter how you slice it, no matter what you want to think, politics unfortunately costs money. And when you're trying to lobby and trying to convince politicians and put politicians into positions of power that have your viewpoints, that costs money. And that's just an unfortunate truth that we have to live with, whether we like it or not. But that doesn't mean that the people you put in place, the people that you donate the money to, aren't principled individuals. That doesn't mean that you're buying them and bribing them to do what you want. Hopefully you're putting people in place that actually feel the same way you do, and they're not doing it just for the money. They're doing it out of a sense of obligation to the Constitution. So, we had a great meeting there, annual meeting in Lebanon, Tennessee. And while I was there, I managed to pick up a couple of guns. I picked up Smith & Wesson Model 60 here. This is one of the new models. This was actually donated by Smith & Wesson for the firearms auction. So thank you, Smith & Wesson. Of course, they have moved some operations here to Tennessee now. So they're down here in the South with us, and we appreciate them donating this Model 60. I appreciate it especially because it gave me a chance to not only purchase a gun I've been looking to pick up, but to do so and at the same time support the TFA. I also picked up another gun that I've been wanting to get a hold of. That's the new Beretta 80X Cheetah. Reintroduction of their Cheetah 380 that I've been really interested in buying. And actually, this was Hickok 45's gun that he donated to the auction. And actually, Beretta is the ones that gave it to him to do the review on and then donate. So thank you, Hickok. Thank you, Beretta. I didn't even know it was Hickok's gun when I bid on it. I don't know how I missed that. He said it in his video, but I didn't even realize it until after I had bought the thing, that it showed on the paper that they gave me that Hickok had donated it, and I didn't even realize it. And I got to speak with him and 10 Outdoors 9 a little bit before the event as well, so it was nice to catch up with Hickok 45. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and not saying he and I are best friends or anything, but I think maybe I've seen him enough now that I'm an acquaintance. Maybe. I may be just that annoying guy he sees every so often that he can't remember my name. That's probably what it is. But anyway, I did pick up those two guns, and I did donate that Smith & Wesson FPC 9mm, that folding pistol carbine that Smith & Wesson came out. I donated that to the auction, and it brought $1,000, which I was just blown away. And I want to thank the person that bought that gun. I threw in a few extras, but still they went over and above to support the TFA in buying that gun. So I'm very appreciative of that as well. But the topic I really want to discuss in this video is, why is the Second Amendment important? And there's a lot of answers to that question. And obviously the standard answer is because it's necessary for a free state. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights specifically states that. Second Amendment says it's necessary. So it's important from that standpoint that the civilian population, which is also known as the militia, have the ability to defend its freedoms. Whether it's from outside sources or whether it's from domestic sources, whether it's from the government itself, whatever it may be, we have that right, that natural right to do that. And the Founding Fathers enshrined that into our Constitution. So first and foremost, it's important for that reason, which is clearly stated in the Constitution, but I want to look beyond that a little bit. Recently in my Bible class that I teach on Sunday mornings, we've been studying from the book of 1 Samuel. And in 1 Samuel chapter 8, the people of Israel, they had desired to have a king. Before that, they were not ruled by a king. They were ruled by the law of Moses through judges and through prophets. But they decided that they wanted to actually have a king like everybody else. And in that chapter, God says through Samuel to them, I'll give you what you want, but here is the problem. Here's what you're going to face if you have a king. And he lists out all of the abuses that they can look to incur because of having a king. Because if they put that much power into one man, they can expect that man to abuse that power and to take their things and to take their children and to use anything that they want to use for their own good. And so God warns them of this, but they don't listen. And they decide they want a king anyway. And I see that a lot around, the United States now. In that the U.S., a lot of people in the U.S. at least, tend to look around and want to be like other countries, especially Europe. They want to have this socialism that they see abroad, whether it's true socialism or just socialist policies or whatever it might be. But they want to be more like Europe. They want to be more like this country. And they want to, in so doing, give more power to the government, centralize more power in the government. And that's a dangerous thing. Because when we look at the Revolutionary War, the War of Independence, as it's often called, we celebrate Independence Day. Well, the Founding Fathers wanted to be independent from England, from the King of England. They wanted to be independent of that country. That is true. It was a war fought to gain our independence from that country, but it was more than just that. It was a war that was fought to gain individual independence from an all-powerful government. Because when you look at the Constitution and the way our government was set up, it was set up in a way such that no person could have that kind of power. And so it was not just freedom from England, independence from England, and freedom and independence go hand in hand. It wasn't just freedom and independence from England, it was freedom and independence of the individual from the government. That's what they were looking for. They didn't want to replace the King of England with the King of the United States. They didn't want to just trade a foreign tyrant for a domestic one. They were looking for something different. They were looking to get away from those abuses that come from a powerful centralized government, whether it be one man or a group of men or however it's organized. And so it was a war of independence, a war for freedom. And you really can't have freedom without independence, not true freedom. And you can't have true independence without freedom. They go hand in hand. Even if they're not completely synonymous, they go hand in hand. But you have a lot of people today that want to have freedom without independence. And that just doesn't work. That's not really freedom. They want to be free to do what they want, but they want the government to take care of them and protect them from bad decisions and from things that might happen. They don't want to take responsibility for all of their actions. They want the government to take responsibility for them, but give them the freedom to do what they want to do. That doesn't work. Because when you do that, you give the government power. And it's only a matter of time before the government can use that power to take away what freedom you think you have. If you truly want liberty, you have to have independence. You have to be separate from the government. You cannot depend upon the government. Now, there's certain things we know that we sort of depend on the government for. in some ways. But at the same time, it shouldn't be things that the government can then hold over our heads in order to make us capitulate to them and give them what they want and bring us under their thumb. Even the military and protecting us from foreign powers, a lot of that protection should be invested in us as the people, as the militia, and not just a standing army. The founding fathers were not really interested in the standing army. That's kind of something that's come about after the fact. And so when we look at the War of Independence, we've got to think about it being freedom and independence, not just from England, but from a powerful centralized government. So how does that factor into the Second Amendment? Well, the Second Amendment, dealing with weapons, dealing with arms, specifically now in our day and age, that would be guns specifically, most importantly. Now, you could include knives or swords or whatever else you want, but in our modern world, guns are the standard weapon of the day, I guess you could say, for self-defense or what have you. And so when you talk about guns, they really are, in our day and age, the symbol of freedom and the symbol of independence. They symbolize that more than anything else. Because when you have a gun, when you have the means to protect yourself, you're not dependent upon the government to do that for you. You can hunt for food if you even need to. So you might not be dependent on the government in that respect either, because you might have an option to take care of yourself. But it instills within people this mindset of independence. And that is what many of these that want a powerful centralized government do not like. I think really, as much as this fear of guns that they perpetuate, that they put out there, I think really they want to get rid of the symbol of independence. They want people to be dependent upon the government. And if you cannot defend your life, you really have no choice but to depend upon law enforcement, to depend upon the government, if you don't have your own means of protecting yourself. The problem with that is, the government, the police, they have no legal obligation to protect you. That's been established in many court cases. I mean, it's set in stone. They have no legal obligation. You cannot sue them if they fail to protect you. It won't work. So they have no legal obligation, and yet the government wants you to have to trust them to take care of you. Well, that's just not going to work. That dog won't hunt, as the saying goes. Now, I think most police officers are good, upstanding people who really want to protect the public, but the fact of the matter is they can't be there to do that. It's just impossible. But that's what people who want this powerful centralized government are looking for. And getting rid of the Second Amendment gets rid of that symbol of independence, of freedom from the government. Because people that like firearms, that like to hunt, and all of these things seem to work together, and they tend to be people that want to be independent, that are independent-minded people. And they want to get rid of that mindset. And getting rid of guns, I believe, as much as anything, is an attempt to destroy that mindset, that desire for independence. And that's a dangerous thing. That's a very dangerous thing. Our government was set up in such a way that there was not supposed to be any one centralized, all-powerful group of people that could be tyrannical, that could dominate, that could rule. You have three separate branches of government that are all completely separate. That doesn't happen anywhere else. You look in England or in Europe, and the legislature and the executive are all work together. They're all part of the same thing. The prime minister's voted in by the legislature, and if he doesn't do what they want, they can just vote him out and put in a new one that agrees with them. And so this three separate equal branches is something different. But on top of that, you've got the 10th Amendment, that amendment that everybody forgets about, that's supposed to make the states actually at least equal with the federal government, if not more powerful than the federal government. And that there's very, very strict limitations on the federal government, but not as strict on the state governments. Most of the power should be inherent in the states, where the people have much more control over what's being decided. at the more local levels. And so everything was set up to prevent this. And yet we have a nation now where so many people are trying to consolidate that power, especially into the executive branch, as the legislature tends to want to get away from actually passing laws and just let the executive branch do what it wants. You have all of these alphabet agencies, all of these branches of the executive branch, these different agencies that just kind of do whatever they want to do. And for years, the policy, the ruling of Chevron deference allowed them to do a lot of that. But recently the courts have struck that down, and yet we don't see these agencies backing down from that. And so there is a real danger now, I believe, in our country that we're going to see this separation that was built into our system start to deteriorate even further. And I don't want to see that happen. And I think it's very important that we as Americans continue to have that sense of independence from the federal government. So when they start doing this, we'll fight back against it. But they don't want that. And I think that's one of the reasons they want to get rid of the Second Amendment, why they want to get rid of guns. I don't think they necessarily even care about getting rid of the Second Amendment. If they can consolidate their power enough, they can just ignore it. Because the words written in the Constitution are just empty words. If all the power is in one man, there's not much you can do about it. And so we need to make sure that doesn't happen. And so I fight for the Second Amendment. I fight for the right to keep and bear arms, not just for the right to protect myself and to fight against the government, but because I know it's a symbol of independence, and that's important. So I don't know if everybody agrees with me. If you do, you don't, let me know. But that's kind of my take on it, of why the Second Amendment is important. So I appreciate it, guys. Y'all take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.